you, that's carried. Now, because the only thing we were going to come back to after lunch was Gloucester Street, we're going to do it now, so then we can knock off and not come back after lunch. So
we'll give officers time to get to the two outstanding questions that we had to break for. Was first to clarify that do the council have sufficient information to consider the two options that are in the paper today, and secondly whether the consultation question has any relevance or is required for the decision today. So if you could speak to those. And
first of all, I will apologise for my confusion and dragging you down into my confusion. I was answering the wrong question, so for that I apologise. In relation to the first question, yes, there is sufficient information in the report as it is today to make a decision in relation to the two options put forward in that report. In relation to the consultation question and determination around the evaluation of the feedback, that evaluation is yet to be completed, and that relates to a decision to be made in the future in terms of the long-term proposal in relation to Gloucester Street post the hearings. So there is sufficient information today to make a decision on the options before you. In relation to the questions that Councillor Johansson asked, the information is contained in section 7, but I can verbally confirm that if that is required. The cost, if we were to take the everything out of Gloucester Street as of today, the cost would be $254,000, of which NZTA would contribute 202 and council would contribute 54. If we, at the end of the consultation and the hearings process, the decision was to reinstate, that would cost the council $470,000. If we left it in and in the future the decision was to take it out, that would cost $215,000, and that's a cost that council would incur. If we were to leave it in as it is, then the cost would be $70,000 over the period balance of the trial, of which council would meet $34,000 and NZTA $36,000.
Yeah, and that's all detailed in section 7 of
Section
the report.
7.
okay, righto. Tim, then Vic. Yep.
And it's the question I asked of Jacob outside. So if this were to be left in for 3 to 5 years or something like that, the ongoing annual cost would be pretty minimal, really.
Yes, but that would be a decision that would have to be made post the hearing.
Yeah. But that is an option once the hearing is ended.
That's part of the information and the options that will go to the hearings panel.
Yep, thank you.
Councillor Henstock.
My question's in a similar vein, and particularly in relation to the $70,000 being the cost of keeping it in that we've just referred to. Given that it's already in, I don't understand what does that money actually go towards?
So there's an estimated cost if it stays in, and this is till October. So and it's detailed in the report. There's a $40,000 cost up to the end of the year, which, where are the details of the report? So this is section 7.3. It's all detailed in section 7.3.
Yeah, I can see that, but I don't understand what is that $40,000 for, because it's already in.
Good question.
yeah,
Your report here.
Just the 40. It's
so
70.
the $30,000 is the cost of the
Good idea, one.
consultation and the hearings panel. The hearings panel costs the costs up to the end of October.
Okay,
So
so
there's
it's not
costs
maintenance
relating to the project in order to run a hearings panel and get through the process.
Okay. So
And we've said that these costs are for staff, project management, hearings, council decisions, ongoing maintenance costs for what is in there. So there's watering of the plant pots.
So is that what the
Today, that's not
40,000's for, to water the plant boxes? No, 30,000's for the hearings panel.
No, that's
yeah,
the asterisk refers to what the 30,000 is for.
she's looking at,
What's
which
the
is
40?
ongoing project cost. I mean, there's
What's the 40,000? These are estimated project costs, estimated costs. So what's the 40,000 for? Same ongoing project costs
just,
until
yeah,
then.
it's just ongoing project
So
cost.
why
And
is
the-
it only till June if it's staying until October?
So the team have done an assessment. It is an estimate of the cost. If it is not used, it won't be charged.
So can I just clarify, will that 40k, at the moment it's saying it's only covering till the end of June, that will cover till the end of October?
No, the 40k is to the end of June,
So
and there's
what
an
will you do-
additional 30k until the end of October
No,
in the next line.
No, but you've said that's related to the hearings panel.
We would have to go. And
Do you
get-
need to speak to it, Lauren?
Those costs are
Yeah, no, you need to come up.
Shall we do 5 minutes break?
Those costs are related to the staff time involved in preparing all the documents and everything needed for the hearings panel.
But there is also ongoing costs for what is out there. Like it has to be maintained as well at minimal costs, but they're there. So the team have tried to put everything in to this is what is expected to be the cost until the end of June. So we've got the team working on all these monitoring reports and everything else. So that all of those costs are still going to come in before the end of the year. So the assessment report that Abley are undertaking, all the rest of it, that is all going to come in before the end of June and will be part of that cost bracket that is covered by NZTA. And then we've got costs, ongoing project management costs, the actual cost of the hearing, the everything else. So the staff have done an assessment of what those costs are. That's why it said estimated costs.
So the 30 is covering the maintenance, project management and the hearings and consultation,
Between June and
And October.
October.
right?
Just through you, Mr Chair, I just don't think it's particularly helpful to have the hearings cost in there because it's something we've got to do anyway. I mean, it's
Oh, happy with that? All good. Councillor Templeton, did you have your hand up, mate? All good. Councillor McDonald.
It is on, well, there's two strands. The first one is the cost. So, what is the actual cost of removing it?
It's the cost of removing it is estimated to be 215,000.
Right. So then, so that doesn't make sense then, because if the cost till the end of June are 40,000, and I'm looking, unless I've got it wrong, option 2, it's got 224,000 till the end of June. So there's a 30
Yeah,
grand
cost
discrepancy somewhere.
So where's the discrepancy?
224.
So Lauren did an assessment and she came up with that we've done a indicative assessment of what it would cost in 4 or 5 months time to take the
I get that,
cost
but
out.
the
But that's not, they're not the same cost. So that,
no, but they'll have to be.
Well, the
can't have-
215,000 is pure construction costs,
right.
whereas the 224 is also other costs as well, because we're still doing monitoring, we're still doing all sorts of other things. They'll go through to whatever, to June or to October.
yeah, so what he's saying is that if you've got 40,000 here, shouldn't that be 200 and
Shouldn't it be 250?
55?
255 to
Okay, you're
remove
done?
it in June.
No,
No, good.
Why would it be 255 if it's...
just getting started. So I'm just really, and it kind of comes back to, I'm just not sure. I mean, I get that it's in the council budget, it's not a big scheme of things, but it's the confidence in the papers that are coming through. In terms of that, if we can't explain now the discrepancy,
Yeah, absolutely.
how can we make a decision on it?
Yes.
My preference would be, look, I'm comfortable leaving it in there, but you know, and it's only been through the questioning that this has sort of come to light. I just wonder whether it's something we can. I just think in terms of we've got to have confidence in these papers coming through.
Absolutely.
And and don't get me wrong, I mean, you guys are
I agree.
working under the pump,
Just wondering
but
whether we can make
at the very least,
decision
we'll
come-
need to get the answer at the meeting if they're not in the report. So, you know, is it something we can bring back?
So there is the choice of either, given that the figures are negligible and it's in existing budgets, making a decision today but actually reporting back to council on
the
what the
actuals.
actual costs are,
Yep.
or the other option would be to leave it lying on the table to, I think the next meeting's F&P, is it? Get it done and then come back and report on the exact figures and what they are.
So just if
And
that's the
we-
will, that's I don't want to hold up. But so the other question is, and I mean I suspect these projects won't necessarily happen going forward for a while. But how do we get the alignment? Because I guess the thing that I kind of think about is we had the temporary, the trial.
Yes.
So we've put that in. But then just in terms of the timelines, I guess we will have always known that we were going to have an LTP. So in a sense, the timeline was always going to happen, that we weren't going to do hearings panels now. So I guess the question is, could we not have aligned the temporary system to be to the end of October so we could do the hearings and we're not in this position? It just feels like it's a bit of an own goal. I don't know, I'm just asking that. Yeah.
We were obligated with NZTA to only have the trial going till October, and the timelines caught us out on the hop because we were putting it in, we were taking it out, we weren't putting it in. So I mean, from a staff's perspective, you sort of hit the nail on the head. Before we've been under the pump and chasing our tails on this one as a project.
It just seems we just need more alignment going forward.
We honestly thought we could get it in, but when it came down to it, we couldn't get the hearing in.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Johansson.
So I see that it says in the report that there's a risk that NZTA will not approve the cost of removal if we don't have a permanent project on budget.
Can you tell me what item you're talking about, please, Councillor?
So that's in the 6.3 and just under the
Yes.
fifth bullet point, NZTA approved this SFP funding based on council indicating their plans for a permanent project on Gloucester Street, so the trial could be used to guide the permanent design. Removing the layout completely without evidence to justify the decision may give NZTA the impression that no permanent project was planned. My understanding is we've removed the permanent project off our budget.
It's currently not in the long-term plan, but that is part of the hearings panel consideration and discussion. And look, it's a risk that staff have highlighted to you. It is there as a risk.
So even if we chose to remove the project with NZTA funding, there's no guarantee that they would fund it anyway, even within the trial or the project period to the end of June, because we don't have a permanent project in place.
That is very low risk, but there is a risk there. That's all we're highlighting.
And how much
think
is
it's a
the
very low risk.
total project cost to date?
To date, it's around.
Well, the reality is that this is about the timing of this. So this decision and that all of that, the total cost of the project and the absolute details of all of that will be put to the hearings panel.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to understand. If we leave it in and there's additional costs that come as part of leaving it in, how much budget is remaining within the budget?
There is additional cost, and that is highlighted in section 7.
But it doesn't tell me the total cost of the project and how much is
There
unallocated.
is money
Are
on
you,
budget.
are
isn't
you
there?
asking post?
There's enough money on
hearing?
budget.
So
We
significant.
spent just
Yeah.
under $1 million on that.
Yeah. So we're under $1 million on this.
Right, so if we, sorry, just to be
There's
clear.
money on our council
We-
budget
we've
in order
got
to move it.
a funding agreement with NZTA for a certain quantum of money to be spent on this project. We've spent X amount. There must be X amount remaining. During the trial period, I presume we have the ability to, I thought the whole point of this project was to make amendments based on how things were going. What is the quantum of money that's available within the trial period to make amendments if we choose to?
There is only until the end of June available to claim back from NZTA, which is why we are claiming back the costs of the monitoring and the monitoring feedback and the monitoring reports that we've done in order to get to that point and to be able to provide the hearings panel with complete information on the trial and how it was,
But like,
how effective it was.
I get, yeah.
But
Okay, yeah, righto, Yannick.
we've stopped, we're in the monitoring phase.
Right, so how many submissions did we get? Do we know?
That is not part of this.
That's not what we're talking about here, mate. Sorry, we'll carry on. Councillor who are you?
Me. Thanks, Lynette. Not cutting across anything that Sam has rightfully pulled out and highlighted. But what I want to know is, was the start of this project was delayed for quite a significant period of time. Has that mucked you up at the back end of the project in terms of the reporting to council?
It certainly hasn't helped us. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, right.
Also, just for my recollection, and I could go back to the report, was that timing flagged as an issue when we agreed on it the second time around after the delay? Because I mean, if Jake's point's valid, we would have been made aware of that at the time.
Yeah, I'd hope so. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry, but I do know that we were aware that it was going to be tight. We generally thought that we could get the reports in.
Yeah,
and the hearing in.
Okay, one last. It's been moved and seconded. One last question for me. Can I, and I'm hearing these numbers of 230, 40 grand to when it is removed, when and if it is removed. Can I have a breakdown of how we've established those sometime, please? Give them to me. It's this much for this, it's this much for this.
Can I suggest that's in that memo?
Oh, sorry, I didn't get to the bottom. Is it all itemised, everything?
Well, we will break it down.
Okay, thanks. That's what I'm after. Okay, so we'll vote, are we? Yeah. I can't hear you, mate. Oh, debate. Yes, so sorry, we'll go to debate. I haven't got my hearing aids turned up. So we're now into the debate. So who would like to go first? Okay.
Yeah, look, thank you. Just as involved in an organisation that just used the Isaac Theatre Royal for a major event, the difference in the Gloucester Street for the users, many elderly needed dropping off, etc., and the general safety of the street is far, far superior than it was without what has been happening, was being put in. And I know that some time ago, Councillor Templeton has seen it. The temporary works in New York City is just like this thing here. They come in, they paint, they drop planter boxes off, rather than spending millions of dollars digging up and doing all these things, and then they shoot off again and it's done. And they are great improvements. I think this is an improvement. It'd be really good to hear the feedback, but from a user at a major event in the city, there has been a noticeable lift in safety for that street, and I want to commend the staff for doing it and thinking outside the box, using temporary projects and mechanisms rather than digging up streets and spending a bloody fortune where it's not needed. Thank you.
Didn't have the button down. Councillor Templeton.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think Councillor Scandrett's right. You know, it's greatly improved the street for those who are walking around. And while those who are driving through might have to slow down briefly or be a little bit more careful with their driving, the reality is that that's only a few seconds in their journey, and it improves safety for all of those who are travelling by on foot. As a council, we've said in the past that, you know, we really want to do more of this temporary and transitional stuff. It's much lower cost than putting in permanent things as a start, which is great. It means we're not digging up and then finding something's wrong and then having a large cost to change things around. But we do need to remember that these things are a trial and they are temporary. They're not a permanent solution for any space. And I'll note that, for example, Ferry Road, which has a Streets for People transitional project, was originally due to be in for a year for a trial, and then originally had funding to put a permanent version in place. Now, that trial was started more than 2 years ago. The temporary version is still in place. We've had to reinstate new bollards, those kind of things, as the temporary ones have been broken, so adding maintenance cost. There is now no funding in the long-term plan to make that a permanent thing. So it'll be at least 12 years of temporary infrastructure instead of putting in permanent, safe facilities there. So we need to remember that these are transitional, they're temporary, and that we do need to learn from them, make the most use of them we can, but then actually to put some funding in to put down the proper versions once we know what design we want. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Yeah, like, if we rip this out, what would happen is Court Theatre would open, people would start going, they do have to cross the road to get there or they need to walk up, and some of them would end up coming to council and they'd say, hey, we actually need some safety improvements here. This isn't fit for hundreds, actually, well, it's thousands by the time you have the others to walk up to. And they'd say, hey, you need to do something to make the street safer. We'd be going, oh, we did have that, but we actually demolished it before the Court Theatre even opened. And we're just sort of realising now. So, Councillor Scandrett's points are really, really good as well. Finding cheaper ways to do things that will be inevitably needed anyway, as people will tell us when they start attending it as well. Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you. Certainly, thanks for Councillor Scandrett's input into that. Doing the temporary trials on these things, I think, is very valuable. I mean, we saw a trial done on Hagley and Riccarton Aves for dropping a lane, and figured out that wasn't quite as smart as we thought it could have been. So that's a good way to give things a go before you go and do the hard infrastructure change. It could be a reasonable thing, extrapolate a little bit further to a decision that's going to come to our council sooner or later around a certain church corner. There's been mention there of perhaps doing a trial on dropping the right lane, the right turn, and monitoring the effect and seeing if it actually is going to work or is going to cause the mayhem which a lot of the public suspect it could. So can I just keep that in mind, that as we pursue temporary closures and temporary trials for these things are actually a good thing to be able to feel and see, do these things actually work? So this has been a good example of temporary trial. It sounds like it's working. The hearings panel will consider that and see if we then take it forward. But let's not be afraid to try these temporary things to see whether the hard infrastructure change is then going to be warranted. Open-minded is what this game's about.
Councillor McDonald.
I hope that open-minded thing wasn't a reflection of me at all. Look, I'll support this because I think you'd be mad not to. The reality is, we're halfway through a trial. If we get back and, again, going back to that theme of rebuilding trust and confidence in council, we will hear from the submitters. If they come back and say they want it, why would we remove something and then reinstate it at double the cost later in the year? Don't get me wrong, it's not a big amount of money, but the frustration with these trials is the scepticism that the public will feel, which is once there is a trial in place, it is very, very hard for it not to become a trial and it become more permanent. So I think, I doubt very much these trials will be happening on this scale for this kind of thing going forward, just given the changes in government funding. But, I think we're really faced with no option today but to let it run through, get to October, hear the hearings panel and then work through it. So, the reality is we just kind of have to do this, but I guess when we should be cognizant of when we're doing trials that everything is lined up so that it actually fits in with our program properly, so that we're not forced into a corner where actually, we look stupid either way, quite frankly, but we look more stupid if we remove this today and then reinstate it later in the year. So,
okay, Councillor Keogh.
Yeah, I'm glad the temporary's been picked up on, because we've got a temporary trial at the moment on Harewood Road that's reduced to one lane, and the feedback's overwhelming from the locals about how much congestion that's caused. So it's good that we're monitoring that, because when you do the temporary, it gives you a feel for what the future could look like. The feedback I've had over this has been pretty overwhelmingly against, generally speaking. A lot of people are quite upset by the cost, even though it's taxpayers' dollars. Luckily, that's not ours because someone else borrowed it. But it's still on the people of Christchurch to pay that back eventually. And $1 million, I don't know how many people around this table have recently spent $1 million, but you can actually get yourself quite a lot of stuff for $1 million. And like dinosaurs, which people will, in their thousands, will pay to come and see and take photos and promote the city and so on and so forth. But do you get that many on a closed street with some painted furniture? I don't know. It's every week. Good to hear. Not on the days that I've been there, but I'm sure they're there on those other days. And the other feedback from the area that I had, I've been there recently, and yes, I did see Tim at the theatre. He was hosting, he's schmoozing people, and But feedback I was getting from people is they don't like not being able to park on the street. So as we make any decisions on any street, not just this one, to remove on-street parking, it really gets up the nose of people in Christchurch. Really, really does. Because when you go park in a gravel pit to go see a show, it's $12. So if you want to make the city only for people with money and resources, then carry on the way you're going. But otherwise, the old days where you had the on-street parking and Dad drove around the block 8 times and eventually got one, and come back all angry and stuff and wouldn't buy your chips. That is because he, had to spend so long getting his car parked. The good old days. That's what a lot of people in the city still want. So let's not exclude them from the city as we go forward. Let's try and create it for both. The slow speed limit thing can work, some cool planter boxes, but let's stop taking out all the car parks. It gets up noses.
Okay, so we're just about Councillor Johansson.
Thank you. I totally support using low-cost, flexible interventions instead of doing high-cost, permanent. And let this be an example of what we could do around Te Kaha, rather than having to spend $13 million extra on a massively expensive traffic system. In my view, it wasn't really the right time to do a trial because we did have a lot of this. I mean, almost half the street is tied up in construction. But at the end of the day, we spent the money, even though it's central government money. I don't know how much. We haven't been told how much has been spent, but I know the total project budget was 1.4. And I can't see the sense in ripping it out now and then having to do a permanent project. We did have $3.4 million on our budget. Thankfully, in the LTP, that has been taken off. I would much rather not have to spend a single cent more on this area, given that it's actually a really good quality road. If you go down and have a look, some beautiful paving. We've got suburbs that are completely munted in terms of their streets. And, one that like Ryan Street, where a 92-year-old is really upset that we've just cancelled that project because we don't have the money. And yet here's a prime example of a central city street that's getting a huge amount of treatment. So I think the sensible thing is to leave it in, although I have to say I am disappointed that we can't get any indication of the public sentiment. We knew when we approved this, against the staff advice at the time that we shouldn't proceed with it, that we would have to do a trial evaluation. So I don't understand how we can get to a point today where we're being asked to extend the trial period at a cost to the ratepayers rather than being able to do it with the taxpayers. I would have far preferred to have the hearing done by the end of June so we could make the decision and not risk an increased cost to the ratepayer. But at the end of the day, if we've saved $3.4 million from not having to do the permanent and got something in here that is acceptable to people to make it a better place for people to be, then I think we should support that today.
Okay, right. I'll say the last. We've got movement essentially. Right, my turn. I was against this right from the start, and I still don't like it. The amount of money we spent, yada yada yada. But it's daft. We're so far up the pipe now. It's daft to actually turn around and come out the other end, come out back where we come. The thing that worries me is say we get to the hearings panel and we decide that it stays in. We haven't got $3.4 million to do it permanently anyway. So does it just become, like Councillor Templeton said, a sort of a high OPEX looking after-y thing because it's temporary for years and years to come? So I'll vote for it, but we shouldn't have gone down this track in the first place. So, okay. With that, I will put this motion on. That's right, you did have your hand up. Yeah. Councillor Barber.
You just don't care.
Yeah.
It was an open-mindedness that kind of surprised him.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on the bandwagon too. I wasn't thrilled about it to start with, but I'd have to say that the Streets for People Aranui project has changed my mind on temporary traffic changes. It's been really positive. Yeah. The beauty of that project is that we, council staff, listened brilliantly to the community, made some significant changes to allow more parking for people on Breezes Road who desperately wanted to keep it, something like 95%, and took away some of the changes that weren't really working for the residents. So I think you know, this is the way forward. If you're going, rather than spend a lot of money in one go, do something temporary, and then if it fits, then make it permanent. You know, when the time comes. And I agree with Councillor Johansson's assessment of what we should do around Te Kaha. You know, rather than spend, what is it, $13 million up front, look at something temporary till we get a good solution. So, yeah, I will support it.
Okie dokie. So I think we're all looking pretty sharp here. I'll put this motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. Carried. Right. We're at the end. There's no PX. There's a bit of a worry. So I'm disappointed that I don't have to kick Tina out because there's no PX. So, away you go, Kelly. Waka, tapu, kia wata, ara, Huie, tahie. Thank you very much.